In a previous lesson, we took a very basic look at the concept of an option contract. Now we're going to delve a little bit deeper into what actually is an option contract. You're going to see that essentially like insurance, an option contract is built on future speculation and the risk associated with that. As usual, I'm going to start with an analogy about insurance that we can all understand.
So an insurance contract essentially is an agreement that holds risk, and to hold risk doesn't come for free. It's an agreement between the car owner and the insurance company. The contract contains a promise that if damage occurs to the car, then the insurance company will pay out a lot of money, disadvantaging themselves in order to pay for the damages. Let's say the contract will cover the car for damage up to $10,000. That's a lot of money. This contract is worth a lot of money. So why isn't this amount of money swapping hands yet? Because the $10,000 is promised inside the contract, but there's a strong chance that that amount of money will never have to swap hands or even be utilised. And there's a small chance that it will. You can go years without receiving serious damage to a car, even possibly a lifetime. So the $10,000 promise exists inside that contract, but it is not the value of that contract. Remember, it's highly likely that the $10,000 will never be required. So if I was to buy that contract, I'm not going to pay $10,000 for something I probably will never use. But that promise is worth something. It has to have some value. The insurance company isn't just going to make that promise for nothing. So a value is determined and stuck on that contract. Let's say it's $100. The car owner pays that because it is a reasonable amount and it offers them comfort and security, knowing they won't possibly have to fork out $10,000 one day.
So let's sum up what is an insurance contract.
The contract is an agreement that holds risk. Inside the contract is a promise of exchanging a large sum of money if required. Outside the contract is a price that promise is worth.
It's as simple as that. No need to overcomplicate it. I think you can understand that now, so let's step it up a little bit and delve into what is an option contract. It's a very similar concept to an insurance contract, but differs slightly. Let's take a look.
So an options contract essentially is a digital contract that holds risk, and to hold risk doesn't come for free. A stock is chosen, then there is an agreement between the contract seller and the contract buyer. The contract seller is like the insurance company. The contract buyer is like the car owner. Instead of damage to a car being the focal point as to whether money swaps hands or not, instead, it's a speculation of where the current price of the stock will move next. So the contract is a promise that if there is a breach of that price speculation, then the contract seller will transact 100 shares of that particular stock, disadvantaging themselves in order to cover that promise. So here is a hard and fast rule to embed in your brain. It never changes. One option contract represents 100 shares of a stock, always. So the contract will cover the transaction of 100 shares of a stock. That's a lot of shares. This contract is worth a lot of shares. So why isn't this amount of shares swapping hands yet? Because the 100 shares are promised inside the contract, but there's a chance that amount of shares will never have to swap hands or even be utilised. And there's a chance that it will. So the promise of 100 shares exists inside that contract, but it is not the value of that contract. Remember, there's a chance that the 100 shares will never be required. So if I was to buy that contract, I'm not going to pay the actual value of those 100 shares for something I may never receive. But that promise is worth something. It has to have some value. The contract seller isn't just going to make that promise for nothing. So a value is determined for that contract. Let's say it's $1. Doesn't sound like much, right? But here's another hard and fast rule to embed in your brain. That price is only for one share. But remember, the contract has the promise of 100 shares inside it. So the actual value of the contract is that price multiplied by 100. The actual price or premium of the contract is $100. When you start looking at options chains later and you are presented with all these prices of the different contracts, don't be deceived. Whatever number is in front of you for the contract, multiply it by 100 and that is the true value. That is the premium of the contract. So the contract buyer pays that because it is a reasonable amount and it offers them the chance to transact those promised 100 shares at an advantageous price.
So let's sum up. What is an option contract?
An option contract is an agreement that holds risk. Inside that contract is a promise of exchanging 100 shares of a stock if required. Outside the contract is a price, or rather premium, that promise is worth.
Okay, you can see we're starting to break through the surface a little more now. Each lesson will get slightly more comprehensive, but as always, I'm going to provide them in easy steps to process. See you in the next lesson. Have a good day.